I recently published the book Play to Potential, published by Penguin, where I share a framework, FLAVOUR, which we can use to lead a multidimensional life. As part of the book, I decided to profile 6 people who I believe are exemplars of playing to their full potential and leading a flavorful life. One of them is Sangeeta Shahaney. Sangeeta's father was one of the pioneers in executive search in India. However, Sangeeta decides to start off as a homemaker for the first few years. She marries a sailor, decides to see the world and focus on her family and children. But due to an unfortunate health episode, she loses her husband. After that, she decides to take stock of life and sets up a small SAT coaching practice in Pune, which over the years has turned into a really flourishing business. Sangeeta's journey is a great case of not overcomplicating life, looking at reality in the eye, being pragmatic, and taking one baby step at a time and really playing to your full potential. Without further ado, let's listen and learn from Sangeeta Shahaney. Sangeeta, thank you so much for making the time to come on the Play to Potential podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
And as you know, in this series of conversations, we are talking to people who I believe are striving to play to their full potential as a human being. And clearly, you're one of them, I believe. And would love to understand the various dimensions of life in this conversation, Sangeeta. But maybe for the purpose of listeners, if you could just chat a little bit about who you are, what do you do currently? Why do you do what you do? If you could just give us a sense of that, and then maybe we could pick it up from there.
Okay, so if I talk about where I am today, I have a small company which I run, and my focus is to prepare students for a standardized test called the SAT, which students who are going to the US require for undergrad admissions. I have been in this business since 2010, so I have a pretty vast knowledge of it and a good grip on the understanding of what is needed. Because my overall perspective on how I wanted my life to be was never necessarily career driven. The business part is just one aspect. At this point in my life, I am at the stage where, I'm pretty done with a lot of the big responsibilities when it comes to my family. And so while I have the business pretty much running on autopilot, I'm also looking to do different things. Thanks to COVID, there's this larger sense of urgency to do things sooner rather than later, because I feel, we all lost a couple of years there. And most of us who are in my age bracket feel it even more because, it's like, okay, we have these many years to travel and, do other things. And then we lost 2 years of that. So this is where I'm at. I am free to do what I wish. And with the business doing well on its own, I'm lucky to be able to start thinking about pursuing other things also.
And when you say other things, are there a few thoughts emerging in your head just to explore those?
Yeah. So again, within my own plan for myself, I said, I'm basically I've always been a planner. And, when I was going through, what a bit of what we were going to discuss, I started seeing this emerge from a much earlier time. I mean, you don't think about it till you kind of look back. And there came a time where I said, okay, what would I want to do for the next so many years? And I put it down to, I want to learn something which will keep my mind extremely active and agile. I definitely want to travel, and I want to have time to start devoting myself to a few causes that matter to me. So an ideal day for me going forward would be something like, I would like to structure my week where I have these few causes where I would volunteer, give my time to, or whatever's required, and not like a bunch of them. I've still got to decide 2 or 3 where I can really give my time to. I would then also like to give some time to, when I said, something that keeps my mind agile, I started learning this game called Mahjong. And
how do you spell it?
Mahjong. So
Okay.
it's a very popular game in China and Hong Kong. And, you play it with tiles. Actually, my mother used to play it many, many years ago. And as a child, I would come home and watch her. And it always fascinated me, but, it wasn't something that I was going to do at that point. And then I realized that there's a huge fraternity who play this game in Pune. Wow. So I consciously, wiggled my way in there and started learning it. So you play for 4 hours at a stretch, and there's different, things you need to do. So it just keeps you completely absorbed. And sometimes you actually feel tired mentally when you're done. So a typical day, a week would be portioned into playing my game, my volunteer work, and continuing with my classes, in some of the evenings, because now that I've moved everything online, that's possible. And of course, I would love to join a choir.
Wow. That sounds like a full life.
In between that, of course, family. And as my daughter says, she says, I'm going to start feeling like I need to take an appointment with you. But the bottom line is they would come first.
Of course. And you have 2 children, did you say, Sangeeta?
Yes, I have 2 children. My daughter is settled in Mumbai, just had a baby. And my son is in London. He was working with Twitter and then jumped ship just before the London office sank, and he moved to Reddit.
Understood.
He may decide to move back and stuff, but I think for them, they're also pretty clear that they're very happy to indulge the fact that this next decade is my time. So it's, it's like, be selfish, mom, just do whatever you want, So I'm not, in the sense, I'm not going to be expected to jump around and be at everyone's kind of beck and call. Not that that's how I would view it. So, I really feel that this is the time which is what I said the first time, that I'm really having a great time.
Lovely. Now, this is wonderful, Sangeeta. Maybe it's a good time to go back. I find it helpful to understand how people are formed by the early years. So can you talk a little bit about your formative experiences, first 15, 20 years? You did talk about your parents coming in from Pakistan to India and how some of that might have shaped you. Can you talk a little bit about how you were shaped in the first few years of your life?
Yeah, so, they were both refugees and started from zero, and of course came from wealthy families. They're the typical story where they literally left everything and packed jewelry in these saris and, at the station, worried about what would happen, pin drop silence when they cross the border, that kind of thing. And both of them separately started off in like 1-room homes, and so, while I loved hearing all of this, I also understood that yet, it's like, so our community, we're Sindhis, always believed in working hard and, the whole business thing. So I saw how for my father, it was education and hard work, and he had this fire. He was an entrepreneur to his very core, and he always had this fire to do something. In fact, if I think about both my parents, on one, I had my dad, who was just like raring to go for everything. And on the other side, I had my mother, who was actually the nervous kind, unknowns scared her. So she held him back a lot. Like, he got the opportunity to maybe settle abroad for some years, but she was too scared to leave her little cocoon of, whatever they had created. When my brother got an opportunity to go to United Wales College on a full scholarship, she just said, no, it's not the age for it, and didn't let him go. And even with me, it was, she wanted to hold on to me and not necessarily let me go out to study, which was fine because I was also very attached to them, So that combination, and she always told me, she says, I was a very shy, kind of quiet kid. My brother was the extrovert. But she always told me, she said, you're very quiet and things, but, you're not fazed by any of, you're not like me. And somewhere I thought, I shouldn't be like her because it's not, to be afraid and all doesn't take you very far. And so there were situations where I would lie to her only to prevent her from preventing me. A small example is when I was doing my postgrad at the Tata Institute. Twice a week, we were allotted to different organizations for field work. Now, I had never taken local trains, buses, yes, but no local trains into suburbs and things like that. And this required it. Like if you were placed at a factory, you would have to go to Thane, on those 2 days. And at the start, just to find my feet, I needed to be dropped to, Grant Road Station. And she kept saying, but, where are you going? And I wouldn't tell her that I had to go to Thane because I said, she's probably going to yank me out of the program, stuff like that. So there were many things that I just didn't tell her. And it's only later that she said, oh my God, but you're right. I wouldn't have let you do any of this, So this seeing her subconsciously made me probably strong because I didn't want to be like that. But she was also a wonderful role model as a mom, the nurturing and the, this thing about you always you look for your mom when you come home from school. So, it's in the early years where even as a child, you're not registering it. But somewhere I understood that, this is how it should be. You want your mom there and things like that. It was my father who actually saw the potential before I did. And, right from even choice of hobbies, for example. My mom sang beautifully. My father loved Bharatanatyam. Okay, so then they said that, okay, we'll expose her to both and then let her choose. It so happened that, and my mom's, in retrospect, she was right because she said, music can be with you forever because you don't need a setup for it, and you can just sing.
It's portable.
But for dance, for dance, if you don't have your music with you or the accompaniments and over time, whatever. So my father would accompany me to every class and sit through it because he loved it so much and because he didn't want the fact that I had to go on my own or anything, to come in the way. And so that's how I learned Bharatanatyam and then did my Arangetram and whatever.
Wow. So that's something very close to, as I mentioned the last time we spoke, my wife did her Arangetram in 40 and my kids, both my son and daughter, learn Bharatanatyam. And music is very close to our hearts as well. So you've touched a nerve there. Yeah.
So what happened, just to finish the Bharatanatyam story, is that I had a very young guru. In the sense, she was in her early 30s herself. And when she got married and she was moving to Canada, so she didn't want to shut her school down. So she asked a few of us who had done our Arangetram if we would like to teach some of the junior kids in the same place. So, she divided the kids, and then, so every time from college, I would go there twice a week to take classes with my student. And then my student did her Arangetram also.
Wow.
But it was under her, guise. So, of course,
enough.
she used to come and brush her up and things like that. But the music, I did go back to it and I did start taking lessons and stuff. To come back to my parents, even though it was so many years ago, they came with their approach to bringing us up was far more modern than a lot of parents at that time. You know, they put us into a co-ed school because they just said which is the best school near where we are. They even when it came to teenage issues and boyfriends and stuff, I could go and tell them anything. You know, there was no pressure later on to get married and whatever. It was the other way around where I was keen. My dad said, okay, remember I told you, I said, I just wanted to have this happy family and children. And he said, just go study, work, and that'll happen. You know? So he was the one. And later, when I started working with him, because he had grown this business, which he and I he started it, but I worked with him right from day one. And he would always say that, you know, she has the potential to take it further if only she wants to, you know, but I had other plans for myself.
So yeah, let's talk about that, Sangeeta. I think I found some of the choices interesting as well, right? You spoke about not choosing to get into the business that your father had set up. Then subsequently, you spoke about your involvement at Akanksha. And then subsequently, you spoke about how SAT coaching happened more recently. Can you talk a little bit about maybe each of these transitions? But I guess the one thing I realize is sometimes the professional transitions are also in the context of a personal transition, right? So if you can talk a little bit about both the professional and personal as you sort of chart the timeline.
So to begin with, you know, because my goal, like I said, was the other one and not professional. Even when I did my post-grad, I worked with my father right away. Although if career was the way to go, the smart thing would have been go out and work because, you know, there were campus interviews and things.
Yes.
And then go back because the business is not going anywhere, you know, because you're going to add so much value. But for me, it was jump right in because I don't know how long I'm going to do this, right? So again, from a practical perspective, yes, if I had met the right person in Mumbai, that would have been ideal. Where, you know, you meet the right guy, he's in Bombay, you can carry on doing your thing, and everything may have taken a different path altogether. But when a couple of relationships didn't work out, and I realized that, you know, by restricting myself, I might make the wrong choice. I then said to myself that, you know, I'm not going to do that because I really do want to move on with this phase in my life. So it was really thought through without really thinking that I was thinking it through. You know, it's like, this is what I want. This is the thing that's most important to me. Okay, so things in Bombay didn't work out, but I'm not going to settle for what I think is the most important relationship going forward because the business is so important to me.
Understand.
And yeah, and it so happened that my husband wasn't from Mumbai. And so, you know, that's how my life moved in the other direction.
And you said he had a traveling job, right? He was in the Merchant Navy, if I'm not mistaken.
He was everything my parents didn't think I would say yes to. Because, you know, a Merchant Navy was always looked at, oh, you know, he didn't want to study, so he went to sea kind of thing. And my husband also apparently chose this because he did very well in the mid-years of school, and his father was so excited, like he got a double promotion and stuff. And the dad said, listen, my son is going to be this IIT engineer thing, whereas if they had just let him be, he would have gone into, he would have loved to do law and things like that, you know, BA for boys, never, you know, in those days. So they kept pushing, and in rebellion, he just said, I'm out of here. Now, it's not that the exams to do in the Merchant Navy are easy. So he said, before I knew it, I was stuck with that, but my ego didn't allow me to quit. So yes, so it literally went from somebody not from Mumbai to somebody who's nowhere, because after we got married, I sailed with him. And even then, my dad always, there was always a lot of, because, when he was, like I said, the pioneer of headhunting in India. So there was a lot of research also involved, right? Because you wanted to see who's where and then, and create this whole database. So I would take all that material with me because I had all the time to do it.
Understand.
And I would actually mail, like physical, in those days, mail it to him from the different ports and stuff like that. So life was like an adventure.
This was like this was a truly work from anywhere concept many years before COVID happened.
Yeah. And he was writing a book. So then he would send me drafts, So I was doing my thing, but I was also having a great time because in those days, one couldn't afford to see the world. And that's what we were doing, So that's when my life moved into the next phase, which was settling down, because once we started a family, couldn't sail that much. My husband quit and tried to do commodities. That didn't work out. And then when he had to go back to sailing, we moved to Pune because we decided that if I have to raise my family for a chunk of time without him there, then Delhi was not, I never took to it. And it's different when, your husband's there and you have a circle and you have this thing, but alone, it's different. Of course, my mom-in-law was with me, but whatever. Anyway, so we moved here and then I was still not working. But at some point I started, when my son, second born, started, finding his feet and slowly moving into the school system and stuff, I realized that I had pockets of time. Again, because I was very clear that I did not want to compromise on my family time at all. I said to myself, okay, so what do I do which doesn't make the demands of me, when it comes to holidays and stuff, because I want to be free for them when they're free. So the summer, the Diwali, the winter and stuff like that. So obviously volunteering made sense. So in the early days, I used to just go to this orphanage, which was not far from me, but I found that was a very loose kind of thing, like I just go and help them out and that was it. Then I said, okay, why not go to a place which has some structure so that whatever I'm doing also has some impact. Because I was very clear that I was not going to be the kind of volunteer who said, oh, I need to go out for lunch today, so I'm not going to Akanksha. I always had, once you worked, like I worked for 6 years.
At Akanksha?
No, before at Boyden, before I moved to Akanksha. And then, of course, there was a gap. But, when you've worked and you've kind of got that discipline, I could never lose that discipline. Which means that, like, even when I was just at home, it's like I could never watch a movie with friends at 11 in the afternoon on a weekday. I just couldn't. I'd just be busy with stuff, but I would, you know what I mean? I couldn't just.
There's a certain work ethic that comes in.
Yeah, which is not judging anyone else, but that's just how I was. So when I actually walked into Akanksha, I think they didn't know how serious I'd be, but they needed the volunteers, obviously. And so, but then, I proved to them that I'm going to be here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I would go in when they opened, which would be maybe 9:30, 10, but I would leave and be in time for when my son, I would literally come home and he would be at the door, because of school timings. And that went on for 5 years, and it would have probably continued forever if my husband hadn't passed away. Because I was pretty much a part of the company. I was included in everything. They had printed I had my own visiting card. If I had to meet a potential person, they would say our HR person only comes on these days. It wasn't just, okay. And I was also getting involved in other things with them. And as I said last time, in 2009, they were moving out of, so earlier they would target these different bastis and have these centers where every evening kids would come in and they would teach them spoken English. But there also they were getting frustrated because, they couldn't map the progress that well. So you're putting in all that energy and you're getting training teachers, but what's happening to these kids, especially if suddenly the husband loses the job and they go off somewhere, then what happens to all those years? So they were working on moving into municipal schools and then making an impact from like 0 upwards. So they were moving into a very exciting phase, and I had already planned my role after the summer of 2009, when my husband's cancer diagnosis happened. So all that happened during the summer, in fact.
Which year was this, if I may ask?
2009. It was May of 2009. So 6 years of Boyden, then there was an interval, and then I worked for 5 years with Akanksha.
Well, the reason I ask is 2008 is when my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And in a way, that phase for me is just about dealing with his cancer treatment and just, that's sort of when I think of 2008, that's sort of the defining memory. So
yes.
I hear you. Okay.
So that's that period from May till June, 6 weeks was pretty much what was from finding out to when he passed. And my daughter was just going into the 11th. My son was going into the 8th. 9th, 10th, I think 9th, I don't remember. But so I just remember, sort of saying, okay, I need to step. So you know what happens when you're in that situation? It's almost surreal, because you're saying like, what happened to our lives, literally. But I knew that I just had to prioritize this. In the background, I could tell that everyone was going haywire. My mom-in-law was trying to handle it her way. And we had gone to Bombay for the treatment. So they're here. She's trying to hold fort as well as obviously deal with her own anxiety. My daughter was going completely, handling it like not wanting to deal. My son was completely shattered. But I somewhere I told myself that I cannot deal with those things. There's enough time to pick those little pieces up, focus on this for the moment. So when things kind of settled, for a period of time, I just caught my breath, and basically you just want to hang on to the kids and, sort of navigate this whole new normal or whatever. And as I said last time, literally, I remember this conversation. So obviously, because my husband was in the hospital for a length of time, and so, family would, and being cancer, you can't have guests and stuff dropping in. So they would sort of keep an eye on me for the time when I wasn't with him in the hospital. So every now and then my brother would take me to the club and say, let's have a quick bite, change of scene and all that. And that's when he started talking about this lady who was doing the SAT in Mumbai.
This is your husband talking about it, or was it
my brother, Dinesh?
Dinesh, of course. Got it.
So he started telling me about this. We spoke about it last time, no? This counselor, Viral Doshi, and how he was recommending another batchmate who used to teach English in school. And he said, what are you doing there? If you start doing the SAT, I can send students to you. And, why do you want to just be stuck in a job? And he just said, it's English and you've always loved the language and stuff like that. And, it was just somewhere in the periphery of my head at that time. And when I came back after everything, I remember thinking, and I think I told you, that there were times when I couldn't do things that my husband and I did together. So it's like if we always had tea and read the paper together. So I couldn't read the paper for a while. And yet with my tea, I needed to read something, so then I said, yeah, he was talking about the SATs. So a friend of mine's son had just given the test. So I said, let me call for the books. So I literally started looking at these dog-eared books at that time. Okay, you want to move your mind into something that's so different that it doesn't focus. You know what I mean? So I was doing that then, and so I could say that I was fortunate because financially we weren't that badly off. But obviously, I had a long way to go. My kids hadn't even started their careers and marriage and everything to go. So I knew that I have to think of something to do that would also, bring in some money. But it's not that I had to do it tomorrow. So, so I could take my time and think about it. So I said, all right, what's the next step I should do? And then I said, I don't know anything about teaching the SAT. What if I somehow find a job for 6-8 months in one of these institutes that do that? And there was this Dilip Oaks Academy, which advertises for GMAT, GRE and all that stuff. And it said SAT. So I said, okay, let me go and see what it's all about. But of course, he put me in this other department, which was editing essays and stuff. And they basically didn't have the SAT. They were just saying they did, which I realized. He kept saying, we'll do it. But I realized, so I said, okay, let me, work for a little bit. But that lasted just about 5-6 months. And during the course of that time, a friend of mine was also looking to do something as her kids were moving out of the house. And she was a teacher before. So we used to talk, and she said, and I said that, my brothers told me about this. And she said, oh, what a great idea. And we said, okay, let's think about it. So we started brainstorming and things like that. And then, so she helped put the structure into place about the class and how many we'd need, blah, blah, blah. And I started telling her that, we need to go out and how do we get business, right? So that's when we said, okay, we should have to start by making presentations in different schools. So we started calling and making appointments, and it wasn't that easy, but because both our sons were from the same school, they gave us the time of day. And that's how we got our first students.
Wow.
But even then, Deepak, so then in a few years, so we literally operated from home.
And this is just to understand timelines. So which year are we talking about now?
2010 is when I started.
Okay.
And it's just when we were not, so again, because I'm my father's daughter, I was dreaming of making it a big thing. She was not. So she thought, in the house, tuitions kind of set up. So I was the one who kept pushing, that kind of stuff. So it was literally 2 students, and we didn't think of marketing. We didn't think of anything because we also wanted to test our module and everything like that. So it so happened that the next batch coincided with her son's batchmates who needed it. And the moms, and there weren't, there were 2 or 3 institutes that did the SATs, but these were, like franchises. So they were very rigid. They were tied down by the franchise, so they weren't flexible. And there was one other person doing the SAT at that time.
In Pune.
Yes. So there was scope. So her son's batchmates, so suddenly there were a group of 8. And then word started spreading. It was only word of mouth from our homes.
Wow.
At some point, we realized, okay, let's now take a small space down the road because, it's kind of coming in the way of day-to-day life. So we then moved to a small office, not very far from where we are, but we are in one end of. Are you familiar with Pune?
Not very.
Okay. So it's like, if you look at Bombay, it's like, suppose you're in South Bombay, or how do you tap into kids in the north, that kind of stuff. So we are located in one of the suburbs before you hit the highway and move on to the Bombay-Pune thing. So at that time, again, through word of mouth, we started getting a trickle of students. And we were getting students from the other side too, because, if they're going to the same school, then mothers would talk. At some point, my friend decided her husband decided to take up a job in Dubai. So then she moved out of the picture. And I realized that, I have this office down the road, but I need to have an office, one more center on the other side to capture that entire gang. Because I started realizing that parents were finding it hard to send them all across because of the traffic and the city growing and, all that stuff. So that's when I said, all right, I can't handle two and home, because my kids were home. My mom-in-law was with me. So I said, let me move the office close by back into the house and have the other one that side. So I'm, at least when I'm teaching from home, I'm still there, right? To keep an eye on things. And I live in a bungalow, so I could isolate a small area and they wouldn't come into the house, so it was private. So that worked fine. And then I had this other center in town. Still no presence on the internet, okay? Because I was not at that time thinking of expanding and doing any of that, especially when my partner left, because then we had thought of moving into counseling and stuff. But when she left, I was saying, okay, let me just get a handle on this first. So then it was like home and one place there. Then I got a teacher on board, so she took the load of me commuting there too much. In 2016, the SAT changed its format. So till 2016, the format was 2/3 was English based and 1/3 was math. So the 1/3 math, the students could manage because invariably they had math tutors from their 10th grade, or I had a kind of a panel of maths teachers. I would refer to them. In 2016, when they changed the format to 50-50, 50% of English and math, I was then approached by a teacher who I had started referring because I got good feedback about his work. And he said, can we work together? So when we decided to do that, while for a period of time he used to come here as well as the other place, then I said, okay, now it's time to move out of the house. So then again, we moved to a small location not far from my house, because this location is very good to tap into a whole bunch of small pockets here. And so then it became easier for me because he took the load off a lot of the little things and things like that. Of course. And so then again, it's like, okay, I told myself we shouldn't be renting an entire space. So I approached a school, and we got just a classroom, which they dedicated to us, in the sense we had our furniture and stuff. So, that way, even though it was shut, because, my classes were mainly in the evenings. So, I'm not paying rent and having this whole space locked up. We would just pay rent for that one room and use it as we wished. We still have that location even now. So that's how we kind of expanded. And I think it was, again, word of mouth. Of course, somewhere along the way, I then created a website and things. But I think just the fact that we delivered quality and also, if there was an issue and the student changed his mind, I mean, we didn't have a thing about partially refunding fees. It was really not about just grab, so somehow parents felt good about the way we ran things. And the results were there, of course, always the main thing. So again, as time passed, we started looking to see if we could again, work with a counselor, set up this, a proper organization, and then maybe get bought out or something.
Mhm.
But the reason why we didn't go down that path is because over the last few years, there's a very active conversation in the US college circles about the relevance of the SATs. So what started happening was, it's always been a conversation because people against standardized testing say that if you come from an affluent family, you can afford the best tutors. So your children automatically do better in the SAT, and so they get into colleges, blah, blah, blah. And what about the others, right? So there's always been this tussle. Should they be having the SAT as a standardized test or not? It's been there for a while, but COVID changed things, because what happened with COVID, this was a pencil paper test. So students have to go to a center. They couldn't hold the SAT for almost 1.5 years. So they had to start doing admissions without using the SAT. And that gave that whole bunch of group of people the strength to really move that forward and say, well, you've taken students in, you've done well enough. So why do you want to reinstall it? So when all that happened, I told myself, I said, look, this has served its purpose for me, served it and much more, not only from the financial side, but interacting with students of that age, I just love it, So I would love taking my classes, and of course the financial angle was wonderful. It really helped me to plan everything in a way that I could meet all my responsibilities, which included sending my son. I would have sent both of them out, but my daughter decided to be a singer, so she went down another path. But my son went out to study, and then all the big things that as parents my daughter got married. I was able to give her the kind of wedding she wanted, and things like that. So I told myself, I said, okay, so this debate is always going to happen. Why am I looking to expand and stuff, and then in the next year be told no colleges want the SAT, and then I'm sort of, why don't I just enjoy it while it lasts? Because see, now there are a bunch of colleges that say we're test optional. So Indian parents, when they hear test optional, they still want their kid to do it because, so we still, it's not that business has dropped, but it hasn't grown the way it was growing.
Understand. And the winds are probably blowing in a different direction when you take a 5-year view or a 10-year view. And,
exactly.
What I find fascinating is sort of the, if I may, attachment yet detachment with the business, right? Clearly I see you saying that you love this, financials are nice, you enjoy teaching kids, but at the same time, I hear you being dispassionate about it. I think one of the themes I'm curious about, Sangeeta, is also how the shape of aspiration shifts over time, right? I think, and I say aspiration instead of ambition because ambition often is sort of along one dimension, that I want to build a unicorn, I want to be a MD, I want to be a partner. But aspiration can be about the various dimensions of life. So can you talk a little bit about maybe the different phases and how the aspiration has shifted over time? Let's say maybe when you were married, maybe pre-marriage, around marriage, maybe the last few years. I'd love to understand and where it stands today.
Yeah, so when I'm saying that, I always wanted to get married, I did want, when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to be that career person in Bombay and all that. And I was,
Yes.
I ended up doing just that. I had 6 years of that. So it kind of, I enjoyed that phase. But like I said, I then somewhere in my mind, I said, okay, it's, I do want my family and stuff. So then I moved into that phase. But I also said, this is not just what I want to do. I need to be engaged, and I need to be meeting people, and I need to be, out there. But keeping my, not compromising on the quality of time I have with my kids. So that's when the Akanksha thing happened. And I was pretty happy to, let my husband like earn and me not earn, because, I never had issues about that at that time. At that time, because I knew that this was not the time for that. The minute I would take on something which I would do and I would charge for it, or I would apply for a job, then the pressure start building. And I did not want to be deviated from the core idea that I needed to be there for my children. And I have always felt this, and I felt it again when my granddaughter was born. It's like you can shape another person. And of course, if you're lucky, you have to be lucky that you don't have to work, right? So and of course, if both partners work, you can have all the material things. So that's a different thing. I just always felt the weight of that. And I again felt it when my daughters had this baby, and I'm saying, oh my God, I mean, we can do so much good or bad and set this person free into the world,
True.
So that's why in those days, that's what I wanted. I was very clear that I don't want anything which forces me to get that pressure because I'm being paid, or if I'm setting up something. When my husband passed, and not to say that I may not have done something, later while he was still there. It could have happened, but I don't know, because I was really enjoying my time at Akanksha, but maybe I would have got into something, a paid position with them. I don't know. So the next phase is also started off maybe as some kind of need. I don't, and then the business. Now, I did want to grow it. It's not that I was saying, okay, let it just be. So I was, communicating with different people. I was doing everything to build it, but again, in a manageable way. Okay, so like wherever I saw an opportunity, I was addressing schools or whatever. I did presentations with, I get students even from abroad and stuff. So, if there was an opportunity to talk to a bunch of pairs. So I was doing all that. I did want to grow the business. And the timing also worked because, my kids were older and moving down their own paths. And it's only that when I then took stock of things, okay, now what? Should we take it one step further and then, build this entire thing where you provide like all the services under one roof, and then I said, but, if the SAT could like just at the drop of a hat at someone else's decision, it's gone, then, what are we putting all that in for? And I'm also at that stage in my life where, I don't need to move this further if I don't have to. So when that happened, I said, okay, let me just carry on with it. And I do. I mean, it's not that I'm not putting in all the effort, because, you have to move, you have to, the material changes and you want to, so it's all happening. But the thing of taking it to the next level, I decided to not do that.
Understood. I think the other piece, Sangeeta, which comes through very clearly is just a level of self-awareness, right? I think I do genuinely believe as life unfolds, both on the personal and professional front, that there are just so many choices that come up. Do I double down? Do I expand? Do I take this job? Do I stay at home? Do I focus on the kids, etc., etc.? Can you talk a little bit about what's been that for you? How have you, what's been your mechanism of building your internal awareness over time?
I always I feel I've always had this, how you have a very strong intuition? That's always been there. it's like my gut feel about things is strong. So that's one part. Also, I feel that, how would I put it? I just react to a situation in the moment and then decide that, okay, this is what needs to be done. This is what after, and sometimes it's an emotional situation. So I just say, okay, hang on, and if I look at how I've handled things, I will say, okay, what do I need to do now? And then say, okay, this is what I need to do. What do I want to do and what do I need to do? And how do I kind of merge the two, And that's why this thing about, I want to build my thing, but I need to be home. So how do I do, so, okay, so then I'm not going to go out and expand and have 5 offices all over the place. I will obviously lose students, but no, this is what I need to do now.
Interesting. Interesting.
I want to expand it, but when I'm doing the math and if all this thing, then what's the right way to do it? So, you kind of balance that out. And also, this thing about, okay, this has happened, just put your head down and get on with the job is a bit like, as I said, from all the emotional roller coasters, I think first of all, accepting what's happening in your life is the big one. When I think back about how I've, moved ahead with all this, I think you need to accept and say, okay, this has happened. Hopefully I did my best. What do I do now? But if you always say, oh my God, that happened, and if that had happened, and why didn't that happen? And if I had done that differently, it's not happening. Those are rabbit holes you do not come out of, So you got to say, okay, like even when, when the thing about the SAT started, I said, oh my God, I've just built this and now, it's all, so okay, what would I do? I did even think about, okay, what my next thing could have been, just moving into editing essays and things. So, I had thought of different things, but the thing is I think that for me, I seem to have this balance of practical. I'm very emotional, but somewhere I can take stock and say, okay, but this is what I need to do,
What I also love in the journey, Sangeeta, is just there's a certain organicness to it, right? It's not no sharp turns. It's a bit like to go back to shipping, right? A ship can turn only slowly. You can't take a U-turn like a cycle. So even when I look at some of your choices, it's been slow but steady, and it's almost like you just keep marching. You just keep marching, and stuff happens.
So that's what I mean by literally putting your head down and saying, this is what I need to do. So you're getting on with it. So, it's like, that's why when Shweta told me that, you have a story, I said, really? I thought I've just been going about my stuff, I needed to do this at this time. Now, when I'm thinking back, of course, it's like the whole flow, right from an early age, my parents gave me a lot of confidence. I'll give you a small incident. So, and I was thinking about it. So what I was saying was, in my early years, we always had these relatives coming and staying and stuff. And you always have these annoying aunties, masis around. And for some reason, one of them had great pleasure in taking me aside every now and then and saying, do you know, Dinesh is their son, but you were adopted. And I wouldn't kind of necessarily break down and, but I think it happened one too often. And, sometimes you're just having a bad day. And then I went to my mom and said, this is what she's saying and stuff. And she just told me, she said, you've always been told that you are a carbon copy of your dad. So just ignore her. So, and I know that didn't ever impact me in a bad way. And I think that's also because of we were as a family. Another thing is, Deepak, it's like when you're in an audience and they say, okay, we are doing a lucky draw and you're going to win tickets to Hong Kong, I always believe I'm going to win it. I've never won it, but it's like, oh my God, I'm going to win this, and then, okay, I didn't. So it's just the way I am also,
The other piece I wanted to explore, Sangeeta, in this conversation is, very often, in the context of Ikigai, people talk about purpose and my why, etc. But in my conversations with people, I find that purpose often emerges when you walk a certain path. Sometimes it's about just doing the day-to-day, doing the small things. And then when you look back over a 10-year period, 20-year period, you say, okay, maybe, this is how I see my purpose. It often reveals itself as you walk a path. What's been your experience with that as you've gone through the different phases of life?
Yeah. So in terms of what is my purpose on earth?
I think just, what you touched upon it in different ways, right? What I need to do versus what I want to do. Clearly at that time, there's the purpose of being a mother, being the primary purpose. Then there's a phase where building the business probably becomes the purpose. Maybe educating kids and giving them a future becomes a purpose. So I'm just curious about how you've gone about, again, what's been your experience with it? Is that something that you've been deliberate about? You started the conversation by saying you're a planner, or is that something that's emerged? You focused on the actions and then the purpose reveals itself when you look back over time?
Yeah, so I think, I focused. So my thing has been that, okay, this is where I am and this is what I want to do. Now, things can take a different course like they did, and it happens in everyone's life. And then you kind of deal with the situation, and then you say, okay, now what do we do next? And so that's always how it's been. Like, say, today I'm at the phase in my life where I have no responsibilities when it comes to the older generation. So, I feel that my life is taking on a different purpose, and I'm this, and then I'm kind of charting that in some way, where I'm saying, okay, like I said, I need to do something so my mind is always active. I keep my work going. I want to move into some kind of social contribution. So for that, I've started working with the Jai Hind School Trust, and I'm a part of the trustees. But that's one. But my goal would be to build that a little more. And then my music. So I'm at a different stage in my life where my purpose is, it's selfish right now. It's about, okay, like, what do I need to do? But I'm also conscious. So like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm healthy, right? So for that, for example, while I've always exercised and, things like that, I realized that I might need some extra help. So I signed on for some classes, which would preempt potential problems, like, So it's like, okay, at a certain age, you could have knee issues, you could have this issue, mobility. So what do I need to do now? So I'm kind of learning how to do certain exercise in a way that's not going to happen. So that's
Understood.
The planner in me.
Understood. And clearly all of us are going to live long lives, right? Unless there are unforeseen events. In general, given the advances in medical history, I think one of the themes I discuss as well is how do you really invest in yourself, right? Whether it's capabilities, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health. The other theme I'm curious about is relationships. I find that people that thrive often have relationships as one of the other pillars that they're very deliberate about,
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How that's evolved over time in terms of relationships? Clearly, family has been one clear pillar. If you want to talk a little bit about relationships in terms of friends, in terms of, let's say, the other communities you belong to.
So I'm a Scorpio, and I think I'm a typical Scorpio, which means that when I'm a friend, I'm extremely loyal. You can trust me and stuff. And if things start going downhill, where I feel that I'm betrayed, after giving my friend enough leeway and benefit of doubt, then I kind of just start moving away, So even with family, so, there are things that go on in families too, but for me, it's always important. I do like to come forward and, try and sort things out. I don't like to have all that stuff hanging, someone's upset and I've said this and all that stuff. So I have consciously made it important to keep relationships with close family intact. I've built good friendships over the years, which actually saw me through that worst period of my life. So I feel that really, I mean, they're like this cliche of friends are often more than family. So, it's important, and again, when it comes to cousins and stuff, so we now have a group where we make it a point to travel together once a year. So this is, from my father's side, and friends around look and say, oh my God, we don't have this kind of thing, but we've made it a conscious effort so that we all touch base and, we share so many things about the past that the younger cousins don't remember. So we've started
And this is
doing...
with kids? So you do that with kids? Okay.
No. So this is, everyone's done with the kids. They can do their thing. So it's like once a year we have to travel together. So that's the cousins who are in touch. And then they become a different support system, So now, again, to get back to this whole mahjong that I started, that again opened up an entire fraternity of people. And I never thought, you at a certain stage, you say, I have my old friends and, I can converse with people at a party, but these are my old friends. But I've suddenly found that in the last couple of years, which is when I started learning the game, I started building close friendships with some, which again has added that extra dimension, and it's, added a lot of fun to the whole thing. So that opened a different door, and then I still have, we have a great alumni. So we, again, try and meet twice a year and get together in small groups. So I have a wonderful alumni of my batch, So, relationships are very important to me. If I know that I've consciously, hurt someone, it would bother me,
And it takes effort, as you rightly say, it takes work, it takes effort to keep them active, to keep them alive, and to keep them thriving. Whichever community, whether it's the alumni community or the friends or the relatives or the, if I may say, the interest-based communities. My wife, for example, currently she, as I said, she and the kids pursue Bharatnatyam, and she's found herself a group of young women who are at a similar phase of life, who enjoy doing something together. So I guess it's sort of the joint pursuit of something that you enjoy, which brings you much closer. So true. I think the other thread I noticed, sorry, please.
So I'm also thinking about, so see, like people ask me that, you never thought of getting married and stuff like that, and I never did, because I just was so busy with getting my act together and, all that. And also I think, women in my situation look for a partner for different reasons. Sometimes it could be because they really need the financial support, which luckily I didn't. And then I don't think, when it comes to your own children, nobody but a spouse can help you with that, So I just felt that, I literally don't miss having a partner, except for when I want to travel. Because suddenly, oh, so-and-so can't come and so-and-so can't come. And so, it's like, oh my God, if I had my own companion or something, then I don't need that. But then now I said, okay, what do we need to do about that? So there are a lot of these women's groups that travel, women only. So I said, okay, that option's there too. So it's not that you can't figure things out as you go,
Remarkable. I think I think the other theme I pick up is just the curiosity, right? For example, you spoke about picking up this new game, Mahjong.
Mahjong. You
Mahjong.
should look it up.
I will. It sounds like Go, the Chinese game Go that people talk about. I wonder if it's similar to that, but it seems like one of
It's
those.
an ancient game, okay? If you go, they gamble on the streets of China and Hong Kong.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
The point I was making was clearly there seems to be an element of curiosity as well, right? If you go back to you sipping your cup of tea with the SATs or learning Mahjong, clearly I think there's, I mean, the other theme I'm sort of learning about living a healthy life is just being curious and picking up new things as you sort of go through different things, right? You're never done, right? There's always something new to pick up.
Yes.
And sort of you build a new community, you learn new things.
Yeah, that was the bonus. Yeah. So it's, and another thing that I've like, I never called myself a religious person. But, and I never thought, you know, that I needed to be one, but I would do all the things that one does, you know, on certain things. But suddenly I feel that, you know, there's something there that's missing. I don't know what, it's still not, it's something that's swirling somewhere in my head where I feel that, you know, but I need to feel something and then be drawn towards that. I don't know what it is, but if I had to look at the different things that I want to do, I feel that that is an area that it could be meditation, it could be something which I think I need to work on somewhere. It's just this thing that's sort of forming.
I think just you know, I was reflecting on our earlier conversation as we were sort of preparing for this one, and you mentioned you lost a loved one recently, right? I think mom or mom-in-law, I forget. Mom. And I remember you saying vividly that, but I'm having the time of my life, you know, and I was sort of I was struck by that sort of that statement. It sort of suggests a certain inner calm, inner resilience, and inner positivity, inner peace. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So the thing here is, you know, mom and I had, I mean, our relationship was different, okay? So she would tell me things like, why don't we have everyone over and I'll be in the other room and let them talk about me so that I know what they're going to say after.
Wow.
And I would say, and then I'd say, listen, you'll probably be hovering around listening, so stop it. We are not going to do that. So, you know, we had, and my own daughter would be aghast. She said, what sort of humor is this, you know? And, or she'd tell me that, you know, she'd tell me, she'd say things like, you know, I know that at the end, you know, you can't have your dentures on. Please put my dentures on. I can't look so bad, you know, to that. So she lived a beautiful life. And I think that I looked after her to the best of my ability. I think I gave her the kind of life I wanted to, you know. She was waited on hand and foot. She, you know, gardens, sitting in the sun, everything. I had this worry always that how will the end happen, which tends to be something we think of as our parents get older. I would take very short trips because I was blessed with a very good infrastructure at home, so I could leave her, and she would very cheerily wave me goodbye. You know, like, because my mom was always like, she just, to the extent that if my daughter said anything about me, she'd say, "Don't say that. She's my daughter." You know, like no one could say anything about me. So I just worried that I wouldn't be there when she passed away. I worried that she said, I don't want to go to the hospital ever. And I worried that, you know, it would be a bad, you know, like suffering. When it happened the way it did, which was none of that, I was right there, you know, she just had a small, like, she was sort of a little hallucinating. And then within a few hours, that was it, few deep breaths and she was gone. I did miss her, but I just felt this immense relief not relief that I didn't have her, because I didn't feel that she was a responsibility. Just relief that it all happened so beautifully. And that was what helped me to, and you know, even with my husband, because we did the best we could, that helped me not to think of, oh my God, what if? You know, your mind is like a monkey, you know, you let it jump, you need to just clamp it down and say, I'm not going there. So it's like that. You know, with her, I said it could not have been better. So you then accept it, and then and then suddenly I said, but I'm also now free to do, you know, anything I want. And that's when I said, okay, now what do I need to do? When I started enjoying myself.
Got it. Sangeeta, this series of conversations is about people who are striving to play to their full potential, right? Across the various dimensions of life. If you were to reflect on your life and be modest, what are the couple of things that come to mind that you want to leave the listeners with, given the way you've experienced life? What would you say to play to full potential? What are the 2, 3 maybe themes you want to leave us with?
So I think, it's like you have to work hard, you have to have clarity. I think, because if you don't have clarity, about where you want to go, then you're kind of stuck at that point till you get that clarity. And while, I never knew the potential I had, everyone has that. It's just that you need to believe in that, and you need to be focused on it. Like now I'm just focused on being happy. So I am, so but you need to I think there is an element of mental stability and strength. So if your goal is not unreasonable, given the environment in which you want to achieve it, I don't see why it can't happen. And you have to keep reinventing yourself as you go. You have to be able to let go of, you can't be attached to maybe your original, where you started from, and say, but that was where I wanted to go. You need to kind of go with the flow to a large extent, and I think that's how I would say, as you said, that's how, it's not that, I just let things happen, but when things happened, I kind of took stock of them and said, okay, that's, it's like people would recognize me for my work, but I never thought of it as, oh, I want to be known as somebody, I just wanted to do good work and that kind of stuff. So I think potential takes care of itself if you just let it move in a certain direction, but constantly, have those checks and balances somewhere, which you can sort of pull back and, change the flow of how things are going on a regular basis. Possibly, I would say that would be the way I could describe how, I've reached, where I have. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think what's beautiful is each person defines it their own way, right? What I've come to realize is there are different ways to live a full life. And I love what you said. I think one piece is just coherence, to say, okay, this phase I want to be happy, and really focusing on that. The other phase is, okay, I want to be a responsible mother or a loving mother, and being focused on that. The other is, I want to sort of really work and make a difference to people outside. So I think the other piece I realize is, as we go through the different seasons, even the flavor of our life evolves. And I love the combination of planning and sort of, in a way, being deliberate about it, but at the same time being responsive and being flexible and taking stock and not being fixated, being a little fluid to let things evolve. So
Yeah, I think that is the only way, because then that holds you back.
Wonderful, Sangeeta. Thank you so much for taking the time and really inspiring how simple sounding you make it. But I'm sure, all of this requires a certain mindset and a certain perseverance and a certain discipline to sort of do this over many years. So thank you for making the time.